The middle part, the crossroads room with all the doors that you could go into in each direction. So this building right here was the single story original room. First it was just one story, but then they put another story on top of it. It didn't just connect to this on the first floor in the crossroads room. It was connected to this upstairs too. And I just remembered this laying in bed the other night. This was connected and open, okay, on this side of the house upstairs. My dad had built a wall, and this wall that he built to close this off would have been at the boundary of that top floor of the house where the original side of the building would have been. He just walled it off like the shit never happened. There was just no allegiance to that middle part. My dad, from real early on, very clearly never wanted a fucking thing to do with that middle part where, like, the balconies had been, that two-story part. Like, he just wanted nothing to do with that, dude. Or the whole middle part either. He wanted nothing to do with that shit. Beyond this boundary of where the outer wall of the building would have been was this, like, open fucking area where it just led into that top story of those balcony rooms, right? Because it had all been walled in by the time we lived there. So it's not like it looked like it was supposed to originally. And I was thinking about how my brothers lived in that first story of that balcony room that was walled off. It was a very weird room. Like, there was something weird about the shape of it. I don't remember how big it even was or anything like that. I just remember it was a very, very weird. And, like, out the window at the top, you could see, I feel like you could see, like, the edge of the buildings, like, on either side. Like, I think you could see something like that out those windows. And it was just, I don't know, like, my room that I grew up in, basically, from in my teenage years, that had been walled off too. Sometimes in walled off rooms don't feel terrible. And I remember this room feeling different from all of the other rooms, and especially in the middle part, like, it did feel different. My mom and dad and shit, like, they had weird experiences. They heard shit. They knew things moved by themselves. They had strange experiences, but I fucking don't think that either one of them ever saw a ghost, man. Not in my childhood home. I know my dad saw a ghost in an antique shop window down the road from where we lived. And there was a rocking chair, dude. He said he was at a stoplight, man, and there was this rocking chair in the window, and he saw an old lady sitting in it and rocking. And when he looked over, he saw an old lady, and when he looked over, it was nothing but a rocking chair in this window, dude. He said he wanted to go get that rocking chair and shit, but he didn't. Thank God, it was a haunted rocking chair. Like, so he did see some shit in his life, but dude, I don't know that he saw a ghost there. Like, I don't know. I don't think my mom did. I don't think my brothers did. I think that, like, I feel like I was, like, the only one who saw ghosts, man. Strange shit. My dad, though, one time he said that back when we lived in the middle part, he was sitting in the middle part living room. He had, like, woken up, and then he had just kind of gone out there and sat down, on the edge of the couch. And he was just kind of, like, in between, dude. He was sort of dozing, man. And he said that he heard a party going on around him. That's what he described it as. He said it was like a bunch of voices, and just they were all just talking, and, like, it was like they were having a party. This is what he heard. And where he was, like, on the property, basically would have been, like, that open area before they walled it in and made the apartment. It would have been, like, toward the front of whatever, like, open area, outside area that they might have had back then, if it was like a little courtyard or something like that. That's what it was giving. It sounded like there was some kind of get together or something like that, dude, that he, like, heard, basically. So yeah, man, my dad walled off this wall upstairs that led into the second story of that balcony area. I just, like, fucking totally forgot that there was anything beyond that. Yeah, it just looked creepy as shit, and it didn't look, like, inviting or anywhere you'd want to, like, hang out in or be incorporated into your home, pretty much. It's just not what it was giving, dude. And so I'm glad that got walled off, but a lot of the reason I'm sure that it did get walled off was because it led right into, like, the big rectangular building, and that building was so fucked up by that time and you know, and it was not safe and shit like that. And so it's just weird how I lived in this building and then all the other parts of it were just like beyond a wall or something, dude. I remember being in my bathroom in that room I grew up in, where I think the front doors to the building were, okay. I remember being in my bathroom, dude, and I didn't realize at the time that this wall that like kind of bowed out and shit and like gave when you pushed on it, I didn't realize that that was the fucking front doors, dude. At the time, I didn't know that, you know, I just didn't know that. And so, dude, one day I remember one afternoon I'm standing there, and in these shitty single story buildings they built, there would always be a business there. One time this dude owned this fucking part, and I could hear him talking to people, playing his fucking day right beyond that wall. And I always wondered, like, why the hell can I hear this so well? Why is this so, like, loud and clear? You know, and it's because beyond the wall was, like, doors. This was that big red building I told you they built. That's the big rectangular building. That fucking building, like I had said, okay, I did say that they should tear that down and just leave my house. Tear that down, tear this fucking part down right here, and just leave my house and let my house be like, you know, a hotel or something. I said that. I said they should tear this down, okay? It came along in 1910. That was not very long after the original one came along, okay? I get that, and I know maybe it sounds mean, and maybe I sound like a hypocrite saying they should tear that fucking thing down and just, like, forget about it ever, like, having been a thing, because I'm going to tell you what I concluded last night. When I was thinking about this, I was thinking of why the hell did they give it a flat roof? Why did they put it on the front or the side of a building that was actually pretty good looking back in the day as far as just, like, the architecture of it? Literally, the coolest part of it was this fucking archway, which I do have another photo to show you of that from modern times. And I'll show you that. And that was pretty, okay? I give them that. I remember kind of what this looked like when you walked in. It was a big, tall, high ceiling, a big open room. Seems like it had, like, some kind of, like, pretty lighting fixture hanging from the ceiling. I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't pretty, okay, during its time and stuff, but that flat roof fucking doomed it. The flat roof doomed it, and I feel like they cut corners making this building. They could have made it so much prettier than it was. And I feel like they cut corners and put a flat roof on it just to, like, give it an extra story or something instead of, like, making it prettier. You know, I feel like they made a decision way back in the day when they had this building built that fucked it all. And their intentions behind that was what fucking ruined it and fucked it all and doomed it. If it hadn't had this flat roof, okay, if it had had a normal roof at the least, it could have looked the same but just had a normal roof, it wouldn't have needed to be torn the fuck down because it was so dilapidated. Some kind of weird decision that I do not agree with when they built that. I found a couple other pictures. And I had wanted to find this one. This picture is of me as a little kid. I'm very fucking unhappy in this picture. I could be totally wrong, but I think this is some room in that middle part apartment, and it could even be like my parents' bedroom, but I'm not sure. Look how pudgy I look. Look how fucking sad your girl looks sad. Okay, that's a sad face. That's a I ain't having a good time living here kind of face. Like, that's like, I'm living on some creepy shit and I ain't liking it. That's an unhappy Annie right there. The likes of which I really honestly haven't seen in a long time, and it looks like I was just like going through it. I think the picture I was most stoked to find was this one right here, and this is me in front of the front entrance, right? The office area, like beyond the front entrance, okay? The front office. This is me standing in front of that. And I'm so stoked that this exists. I think this was like 2007. So that's the front office behind me, sort of the glass panels and stuff. They sort of boxed this area in with the glass panels. It wasn't walled off. That's not what I consider walled off, but it was like sort of boxed in and made to be the front office. Did I ever mention the fact that it was a tanning bed, a tanning salon? We had a tanning salon for some years in there. It was already there. We just inherited it when it was purchased. And not only did we have a tanning salon, but we also had a snow cone Hawaiian shaped ice business right beside it. You can see this was the walled-in part that had once been a porch in those old pictures, but right here you see the window. That's where we served Hawaiian shaved ice. We pull that window back, take your order, make you the Hawaiian shaved ice, honey. Oh my God, dude. But I mean, hand it to my mom and dad for being entrepreneurs, basically, especially like this was all my dad's idea, you know, and maybe even he bought that place because it had the tanning salon and a built-in business. And he was like, let's just take this over. You know, I mean, hey, it did sound like a plan, you know what I mean? But shit didn't go right. I guess like shit went left or something. But anyway, my point with that was this picture of me is in the doorway of that like shaved ice bricked in area right there. And you can see that window right there. That was one of these like false like windows, the windows that were boarded up and walled in. Okay. That was one of those windows. There were a lot of these windows throughout this building. And there's the Hawaiian shaved ice like machine, right? That you put this huge block of ice in it and then like grind it down into a cup. And yes, and there was like a freezer, like a deep freeze back there. And so that's what this was right here, is me in the doorway of that room. And like I was saying, these MySpace fucking pictures, dude, this is hilarious to me. But this is the ceiling, and I think this is in the apartment I wanted to move into. It might have just been some other area upstairs, but I don't know. I just like that. I like the ceiling, you know, and I can get it turned around here. So yeah, don't listen. Golf boots, leg warmers, some weird ass short, slutty skirt. This I don't even know. Okay, listen. I'm not gonna go into detail about what the fuck I was even taking these pictures for. Okay, but this is the front office area. That's what matters here. Just ignore this front office area. That's what that looked like. This was the main check-in counter right here, where you would always feel somebody staring at you. I don't think this was ever a check-in counter. It was just an open window there for some reason. But that one was totally fine. You never felt anybody looking at you from there, dude. I sat just like beyond that on my computer and stuff. Like nobody was ever looking at you from there. But over here, they were fucking looking at you. And you can't see it, unfortunately. But there's an archway doorway beyond this, that archway doorway to my parents' bedroom that I told you guys about, okay? It was right beyond this point. Now we're going to get around to a story of what I believe is an example of an outside entity using my house like a power station, using it as something to connect with me. That's what I'm going to be telling you about now. So around about the time when I was about 15, this went on for a while. Like, I had a crush on this dude, okay, who worked at Food Lion. And this dude was probably, I don't know, man, between like 19 and 21 years old or something like that, okay? And he was probably like an assistant manager type deal at that store. And I had a mad crush on him. Fucking mad crush. Like, mad. Okay. I dug this dude. And anyway, so whenever I would go to the grocery store with my parents, I was super stoked if he was there. During this time, dude, I one night was looking on the internet, okay, for historical pictures. I was probably looking for pictures of my house, but I mean, there were other historical photos from other historical places in my general area, okay? And one of them that I came across was a school photo from 1910. There was a girl in this photo who stuck out to me. And I used this shit as a party trick for like fucking... Dude, I think the last time I used it as a party trick was like in 2008 or something. I had printed it out and I would use it like a party trick. I would show people this class photo and I would ask them, you know, does anybody stick out to you in this photo? Anybody sticking out to you? Right? Now, I don't know if it's going to work through this format, okay? Like, but I'm just telling you, I used to test people with this. And most of the time, dude, they got it bang on. They got it just fucking right. And a lot of times, dude, on separate occasions with separate people, okay, they would be like, is that you in that picture? And they were dead serious. Like, even though this is obviously an old-ass picture and hell no, it ain't me, they were just like, is that you in that picture? They literally thought that it was me and that I was, like, photoshopping that shit or something and that I was in the picture. But anyways, This is her. This is Effie, okay? And when I saw that class photo, and I looked at it for a minute on my computer screen, I got jumped out at, okay? When I ran across this historical photo, dude, I got jumped out at by her. And there was a list of the names of who all these kids were at the bottom of this page where this photo was. So I went and like, it was like, you know, row whatever, left to right. And eventually I figured out what her name was. Okay. And so her name was Effie. I'm not going to say her last name. A lot of other people in this photo. Strange looking people too. Nobody's jumping out. Just her. Just Effie. Okay. Effie was born in, I believe, 1901. She probably wasn't born in my childhood home. She was probably born at her own home, dude. Literally back then. That was like way effing back when. But during the course of her life, because she was a local and lived there the entire time, it's quite possible that she did come to my house at some point when it was functioning as a hospital. Reincarnation plays into this whole story. The story. The events that I'm recounting to you of my life and experiences that I had revolving around my childhood home, okay? Reincarnation don't just play a role in the familiar, okay? It plays a role in this. Then after that, you know, I still be going to Food Lion. I still be crushing on this dude mad hard, okay? At some point I had a dream, okay? And it was Effie as an old woman. And she was wearing like this black dress with like polka dots on it, dude. And we were in what was supposed to be her house. Like, I don't know where she lived or like what her house looked like or anything, or if this really was her house or really what she looked like as an old woman. I don't know, okay? But in this dream, she was showing me her pride and joy. And that was her children and specifically her grandchildren. She was going wild about, you know, showing me her family, showing me her children and her grandchildren, that she loved these people. And this meant a lot to her. Okay, she showed me her life. Okay, in this dream. So the guy who worked at Food Lion had a name tag. And I think it was after the point in time when I had this dream that he showed me her family and stuff. I finally was like, okay, I'm gonna see if I can find this dude who works at Food Lion on MySpace, okay? Because MySpace was the thing back then, and all I had was his first name and knowing like the general area of where he lived and stuff, and I found him pretty quickly. His last name was Effie's last name, so I get a crush on this dude at Food Lion. I then find this historical photo of this girl. I then have a dream about her as an old woman, and she's showing me her family and her children, her grandchildren especially, that she loved. And then I find and track down this guy who works at Food Lion who I only know by a first name, okay? I find him on MySpace, and his last name is Effie's last name. After I find this out, not very long afterward, I had a dream that actually, we were in this dream. I was just an observer. I wasn't actually supposed to be there or anything like that. But that this seemed like it took place, okay, in another historical building that was in the region. I know what I can say about it. It was shaped like an octagon. Okay, so this octagonal shaped building. Okay, I have never been in this building in my entire fucking life. Don't know shit about it, dude. But in the dream, it really fucking looked like they were standing in this octagon shaped room. In this dream, it's Effie and the dude who worked at Food Lion standing in this hall. And it was sort of a darkened hall. Like I said, there were curtains around. It was almost like a movie theater type thing. It was really strange. But they were standing in this hall. And Effie goes up to the dude. And she says to him, "I never thought I'd see you again." And the dream ended. That was it. And after that dream, after they had been reunited, okay, Effie and this dude who worked at Food Lion, who was born probably before Effie died, you know, in 92. I mean, he was definitely born before then. They were reunited in this dream. And after I had this dream, he dropped off the radar for me, and Effie, who had been psychically like communicating with me, you know, in dreams and just around a lot, almost like a familiar type of sense, like almost like the familiar, like she was just like kind of like around in my consciousness, and would like break through into my consciousness and like be there and shit. Like, after the dream where they were reunited, I really didn't hear from her again. And I don't remember ever seeing him again. You know, maybe he didn't work there anymore or whatever, I don't know. But my job was fucking done, is what I'm saying. I believe Effie, as an outside spirit, like just tapped into the power that surrounded my childhood home and then made contact with me, because I had encountered somebody in her family, in her soul family, who was important to her. I had encountered him out in the wild at Food Line. And she took that opportunity to make contact with me through finding this historical photo. You know, I find this historical photo and she jumps out at me, and contact is established. Okay? All for the purpose of her being reunited with this member of her family. That's what she wanted. I don't know who he was, you know. I don't even know if that current incarnation that he had and begun, you know, he was a little kid, I'm sure, when she died. He was probably like I said, like 6 or something. You know, I don't know if it's even that incarnation that is being referred to with this whole, like, I never thought I'd see you again. I'm not sure how far back this goes. I'm not sure if he was in that life where he was 5 or 6 when she died. I'm not sure if, like, that was even the life that we were talking about. You know what I'm saying, dude? Like, this is some reincarnation stuff. Seems like it was always like a plausible explanation for some shit that was going on, dude. Like, it's just hard to explain.